some of the groups have higher reo levels than others, and so therefore your vision and then your things you need to do will be slightly different, so you would have come out with some slightly different answers. So those of the reo levels, you won't need to go to university or whatever to pick up your reo levels. You already have them, but it'll be a different issue. The main thing I heard was time commitment. So a couple comments on that. Don't forget, you got 30 years, right? You don't have to solve it all this year, right? And say, oh man, we can't do that. And so I had one whānau that were like that. We were just talking about, well, what do you have to do to get this? I said, well, actually, Dad needs to go and bring up his reo so he's fluent. So he actually needs to do an immersion course, but he can't because we've got baby coming, and then next year I've got this. I said, cool, let's make a calendar, a year-by-year calendar. And when they did that, they said, hey, in year 5, he can go and learn te reo. Cool, right? So we weren't frustrated they couldn't do it in the next couple of years because they got 30 years, okay? So keep that in mind. We're thinking long-term, we're not thinking short-term. Secondly, as in your families or as a couple, who here takes time every year to plan your year? Like, you do? Yeah. You know, what's one thing we found really helpful? January, right? Get a day, send the kids out, get babysitters or whatever, sit down and you plan your year. The first thing you put in is your date nights. Right? All the wives go, yeah, that's it, that's what I'm got to get them in early, okay? So that's just a different way of saying, hey, you know, there's other things than just the reo, and you want to have some sort of life balance, but just remember we're going for that vision, okay? Where there is, this is Tongi o Kingi Tāwhiao, ki te kahore he whakakitenga ka ngaro te iwi. Okay? You need a vision. Where there's no vision, the people perish. Okay? Right. So we've looked at some high-level stuff. What's our time? 10:52. So we're still going for finishing at 11? Finishing at 11. Okay, so we've got 8 minutes. But that's important stuff that we've done. You've done your vision, and you can go home and tidy that up. Sit down with your family and tidy that up. You know where you are now from Charisma's session this morning. You know where you are now. And so you can plot the key things you need to do to get from where you are now to where you want to be in 30 years' time when your mokopunas are, 10 to 20 or 30. Okay? We've also talked about what are some of the difficulties that you're going to come across when you are trying to do these. And some of them is money, fear, whakamā, time, commitment, and commitment is a big one. And then we've also talked about, well, okay, they're our difficulties, how can we sort of get over those? And we've done that a bit as well. The next thing I normally do with our family, so I'm just going to talk about them, and you've got them in your book. We come down from here, and we make a 6-month goal. Okay? And our 6-month goal has to drop out of our vision. Okay? What are we going to do? What are we going to achieve in the next 6 months that's going to go towards that? Okay? So there's our starter steer by, but we've got to do some paddles before that. And so with our families who their goal is like, oh, we're going to speak more. So they would come up with things like, our kids are going to do reo at school. We are going to, 6 months' time, we're going to have a matariki dinner. And at that matariki dinner, we're only going to speak Māori. Even though we can't speak Māori, only one of us sort of can, but we're going to have a matariki dinner. Or we're going to have a Christmas dinner. Or we're going to, in 6 months' time, we're going to have a breakfast, and the only reo you're going to hear is Māori. Okay? That's it. That's a 6-month goal that our families would make. And we aimed for the key interaction points between parents and kids, okay? Because otherwise the only things the families learn are where the parents tell off the kids. Like, kaua e, okay? Ko taitai koe o niho, and it's only the parents speaking. So you've got to find places where the kids speak back and there's interaction. And we found them that would generally be breakfast, except for teenagers, doesn't work with teenagers, tea time, or, so that's why dinners tended to come up a lot in our families, and they chose it. So that's a 6-month goal. And I'm not going to give you the time to write down something like that. And then after our 6-month goal, I said, okay, well, that's our 6-month goal. How are we going to achieve it? And so we would begin to break it down into 2-week slots. And the only reason it was 2 weeks was because I would meet with them every 2 weeks. Okay? And so if you're a family and you don't know how to have dinner in Te Reo Māori, you have to do a little bit of learning. Okay? So what are some of the things you might have to learn? And you can just put your hands up and shout out. What are the things you would have to learn if you're a family that hasn't spoken Māori to have a Reo Māori only dinner? So, karakia. Ka pai. Luna karakia. Ngā kupu mo te kai, the names of the foods that you are going to eat. Okay? Cool. You need to know that. Yeah, anything else?
Some key phrases that can be interchangeable. You just insert new words.
Yep. So key phrases such as, hōmai te pata. Yeah. Those sort of things so that you can actually eat. Okay? Okay? Otherwise it becomes a very quiet dinner, doesn't it? Okay, hōmai te pata. He mea māu. He mea māku, ne? He nu māku. All of those things. Can I have something? Can I have some of that? Would you like some of this? E hia. Ngā riwai. Ne? E waru. Ka pai? So you need to know how to count. You need to know how to say how many, how to ask for stuff, how to give stuff. Okay? So what else? Saying thanks. How would you say thanks?
Well, if I had to say it now, I'd probably say kia ora, because that's all I got.
God? Okay, cool. Any other ways of saying thanks that people know? Ngā mihi? Kia ora. Kia ora, ngā mihi. So you can teach them that. There's other ways, and you can do this as a learning thing. So, God, tahi te reko te kai. Tā wara, ne? Kia pai mai hoki tēnei kai, those sort of kiwaha. So you can have a session on a kiwaha, right? And so you work out what they are, then you learn them. What else? Yeah, Waita Māori. So when some of our whānau did matariki hui, they would maybe put in something like that, Waita Māori, or they would go, they'd have a place where they go, te mea pai, I mahia e au I tēnei tau, ko te, we went to McDonald's, okay? And so they'd have that sentence that they would say, well, the best thing I did this last year, because this is matariki, New Year, was, and then they'd say it in English. So they'd learn that sentence. And so you've got a number of things that you sort of have to turn. And so how we'd do it every 2 weeks was we'd give them the noun, the name of the food or the cutlery, the preti, tepu. We'd give them the name of the thing. And then after we'd given the name of the thing, then we'd give them the verbs that might go with it. Okay? And then we'd give them the sentences. It depended on the level of the family. Okay? If they were pretty, had a good level of Māori, we could just go straight with the sentences. How I taught it, we always played games. Okay? We just played games, and so we never did any writing down or like the stuff you're doing now. We always played games, and so games like we call rangatira, party games. So paukanaihi, Nike preti, preti tepu. Okay, and competitive games. And so what you find within 15 minutes, only there was being spoken, plus you had really strengthened the network, communicative network between the family themselves. Okay, and they were now familiar with saying those words, hearing themselves. They were producing the language from themselves. It wasn't rote learned. And so that was sort of the basis of how we took a 6-month goal and broke it down into 2 weeks, little bit by little bit, and at the end, And then we told them, hey, you've got to invite your whānau, your Māori speaking whānau. Oh, we can't do that. But because they did, what I found was they were really motivated in learning because they didn't want to look stink when they got there. And so everybody had learnt their little bits. And the whānau were really supportive as well. So that was one example of one type of goal that we took from this vision and broke it down into a 6-month goal with 2 weeks lessons to help a family speak Māori amongst themselves. Okay, now some of you guys have other visions and doing other things, but what I hope is you take this process. Okay, you might think, oh, actually what I did at that kura whakaraura was pretty stink, I'm going to do it again. Cool. Take the process, do it with your own family, and then go to your sisters and your cousins and do it with your wider whānau. Okay? And each time you do it, you'll get better at it. And what you'll find is some of them might begin to get a vision, right? And say, cuz, I know what I've got to do. I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to learn te reo. And you know what? 5 or 10 years' time, that person might be the leading reo person in your whānau. So you never know what can happen if you start getting people thinking about 30 years' time. Hapai? And 11:01. I want to make an apology. I really pushed you real fast today. But hopefully you got the process. Does anybody, just before I finish, does anybody have any questions?